Hello and welcome to the new Boomsday season of the top custom Hearthstone cards of the week. If you want to leave a like on this season opener, it would be greatly appreciated. First up is Darkscale Drake, 5 mana 3/1 dragon for warrior with the battle cry gain +1 health for each armor you have. This means if you're playing a Baku warrior or you just have a lot of cheap armor cards, you can easily get this up to 10 health, which on the board plays like a much weaker Twilight Drake. But honestly, using 1 or 2 cards or your beefy hero power isn't too much to ask for from this class to get a ton of armor and ramp this card's health up to 20 or even 30. Pretty good for 5 mana. But let's talk about the obvious flaw. 3 attack just isn't that great. Twilight Drake's 4 attack is so much better for trading with bigger minions, and even with Darkscale's potential for super high health, it's more likely to just be limited to clearing smaller minions, even though it sticks on the board for a while. The card's problematic against aggro because it's going to be hard to build up that armor, and against control, it's just not high enough value. Probably the best fit for this card is a more mid-range deck, maybe a straight-up tempo deck that also includes buffs that could help this card's high health be more useful with a higher attack. You could even run Void Ripper to either deal massive damage to your opponent or even as just a threat. Playing a 320 means you could deal 20 damage the next turn because you could be holding Void Ripper, and this is almost just as effective because it makes your opponent either spend value to remove Darkscale or forces them to put up taunts or make trades. While cards with high health are obviously balancing nightmares in a class like Priest, Warrior is going to have to work harder to cheese the system with this minion. I'm seeing this card in a mid-range Warrior deck with Eggs, Armor, Void Ripper, and while Darkscale Drake maybe isn't the most competitive card, and this wouldn't be the most competitive deck, it's still something you'd get some W's with. Next up is Wentworth the Wonderful, 2 mana 2/2 legendary for Mage, where at the start of your game, Battlecry, Death Rattle, and Inspire shuffle a Scroll of Wonders into your deck. So just to clarify, at the start of your game, a scroll is shuffled into your deck. When you play this card, another one is shuffled into your deck. If you use your hero power while this is out on the board, another one. And finally, if its Death Rattle is activated, one last scroll. Wentworth is a meme card, but it still holds its own in terms of value. It's just that value is random. Casting 3 or more random spells at random points in the game is often going to end up benefiting yourself more than your opponent, but not always. The weak stats and inconsistency means you'd never really want to play this card competitively, nor is it really that flexible of a card where you could use it in a ton of different ways to meme. You can use synergies around this card given that it's a Battlecry, Death Rattle, and has Inspire. You can make copies of it, draw a bunch of cards from your deck, but the gameplay still consists of just shuffling more scrolls into your deck. I like this card, but I think I would be a little bit disappointed if this was the legendary I got from a pack. So while this card feels like a super unique one-off legendary, I would prefer it was a common. It's not crazy powerful to shuffle 2 scrolls into your deck at the beginning of the game, and it's okay if you end up shuffling 6, 8, even 14 scrolls into your deck, because it's inconsistent, it's random, and really it's just to have some fun. There would be people that would try to fit this in some competitive decks, but I don't think it would be consistent enough to regularly make a tiered deck. If anything, every once in a while I think we just get to see a bit more scrolls, which I don't think I mind. Next up is Penguin Warleader, 3 mana 3/4 Shaman Beast that reads, your frozen minions can attack. Now this could actually bring Freeze Shaman up from a 17th tier deck all the way to a 12th tier. That's progress. This card lets you get around the extra turn where you can't attack whenever you freeze a friendly minion. If you play a minion and freeze it on the same turn, playing Penguin Warleader won't let you attack with it right away like it has charge, because the minion still can't attack on the turn it's played. But normally when you freeze a minion you've just played, or one that you've already attacked with that turn, it stays frozen for 2 turns. 1 turn for the sleepy, another for the freeze. Anytime freeze would prevent a minion from attacking, Penguin Warleader lets you bypass that. But giving your frozen minions charge, or probably better, rush, is kind of a cool idea, especially for Shaman. Almost all of their freezing cards are single target, which means in addition to giving a minion +3/+3, or adding another copy of that minion to your hand, you can also give it rush, and actually make freezing a friendly minion an advantage with this out on the board. You could even have a super powerful combo with Frost Rider to get a big board of frozen rush minions. Freeze Shaman is a long way from being playable, and part of the reason is that there aren't enough good incentives to freeze your own minions. I don't know if you would want to print a lot of cards like Penguin Warleader that basically remove the effect of freeze, but I think this could be a fun way to speed up the pace of Freeze Shaman, a deck that could desperately use some decent synergies. Tier 12, here we come. Next is Metrognomes, 2 mana 1/1 neutral legendary, where at the end of your turn, you gain +2/+2, and at the start of your turn, it loses 1/1 stats. What this means is that on the turn you play, it's a 1/1, but when it goes to your opponent's turn, it becomes a 3/3. Back down to 2/2 on your turn, up to 4/4, you get it. It's a minion that increases its stats over time, and it's always stronger on your opponent's turn, and a little bit weaker on your turn. This is a super solid 2-drop, because basically what your opponent has to deal with is a 3/3. And if they don't deal with it sooner than later, it will continue to grow and become a nuisance. Any fast deck that isn't running the Prince would easily be improved with this card. Even if it is only a 2/2 when you first attack with it, the threat of increasing stats and the strength against opponents trading well makes up for the subpar damage. Opponents can still deal chip damage to Metrognomes to make its health manageable, and its strong suit isn't necessarily to instigate trades, but just on its own or with buffs, it's a great early game option. Now the one thing I would change about this card is I would probably want to assign it to a class. The problem with just a simply good statted neutral card is a lot of decks from all classes are going to try to implement it. It happened with Bone Mare, Fungal Mancer, Giggling Inventor, Prince Keleseth. Some do it better than others, but if all top tier decks run the same card, it can get a bit boring, because these cards are just good, usually because of their stats, and they don't require any unique or interesting synergies. I think assigning this to Rogue or maybe Paladin would be better. Also, it wouldn't work in odd Rogue or Paladin, so maybe that's actually a good thing. It's a cool card. Let me know if you think it's fine being in neutral, or if you'd rather have it in a specific class. Next up is Fire Dancer, 3 mana 3/3 mage minion with Inspire, attack the target of your hero power. This is actually a really powerful concept for a card. On the turn you play this, you can use your hero power to ping an enemy, and Fire Dancer will automatically attack that same target, as though it gained charge. This means you can even use this card to get around taunt. And that's not all, because let's say you play this, and then on the following turn, you attack normally with the minion, then you can ping an enemy and Fire Dancer will attack again as though it has Wind Fury. If you're able to refresh your hero power, you can continue to ping and attack with Fire Dancer. This card is like a more unique and, in almost all situations, a better version of Dragonhawk Rider. But, as the example shows, the 3/3 stats only go so far with Wind Fury. I think you could see this in an aggro or tempo mage, but the stats hold it back a little bit. You risk playing a subpar 3/3 minion by just playing it on turn 3, so more likely you'd want to save this till at least turn 5 in order to also ping and get the charge attack right away. It's cool that this card can get you more value from your hero power, but fast tempo mages don't really need to conserve value with how much draw they have. They either want draw, stats, or damage. Regardless if this saw play or not, I think it's a great use of Inspire for mage. Next up is Kobold Sense, 4 mana 3/4 neutral minion where if you have no weapon, your hero has +1 attack. On the surface, it just seems like you could give your hero +1 attack, maybe you can combo it with a druid or warrior card that gives your hero more attack. It just means you can't equip a weapon for this to work. I guess in this situation, on the attack, it's a cool idea, but it's not worth the bad stats for that value. What's really great about this card is on defense, or during your opponent's turn, because remember, as long as you don't have a weapon, your hero has +1 attack. This means anytime your opponent attacks into your hero, with their minions or their own hero, it's going to deal 1 damage back to them. This is pretty good, and it's probably going to incentivize your opponent to first deal with Sensei before going face. You can do some fun things with this minion, summoning a big board of them, stealthing them up, and basically lock up the game by having anything that hits your face be dealt 7 damage. You can do some memes with this card, and it's pretty fun, but it doesn't really synergize well with anything, and while the effect is kind of cool, it really doesn't add that much value if for the most part it just discourages your opponent from going face before killing this. Ultimately, its stats probably wouldn't let it see play, but it's a creative idea nonetheless. And last up, we have King Todd Thy Third, 4 mana 3/5 neutral legendary beast that ignores Taunt, Lifesteal, Divine Shield, and Poison. When attacking with Todd, or when it's attacked, it will ignore these enemy minion abilities. You can attack past your opponent's taunt and kill their Stone Skin Basilisk in 1 hit and only take 1 damage like it's just a plain old 1/1. And if your opponent attacks into this with their Ziliax, it will trade into it as though it's just a 3/2. What's sort of off about this card is that ignoring Lifesteal doesn't really make any sense, because an enemy minion that has Lifesteal can still deal damage to this minion. Lifesteal is the effect the other minion has, not Todd, so in reality, I think it should be taken off the card and just let opponents get their Lifesteal lifesteal effects. I love the snobby flavor of this card. I like that when your opponent is trading into this minion, they'll have to remember that it's going to ignore some of their buffs, and I think it's a unique but powerful pick for Build-A-Beast that could lead to some fun gameplay. It's a very tricky card, a bit situational, but overall I think it would be a great addition to the game. That is all for this week's top cards. Information is down below on how you can make your own cards, where you can share your cards with others, and where to send me your cards for a chance for them to be shown at the end of the video. Like and subscribe if you enjoy this series. Check out this other video I made about whether or not you actually own Hearthstone cards, and I'll see y'all next time.